I can't believe I'm saying this, but at the time of this video, the Xbox 360 turns 15 this year. Anyone remember when HD gaming was all the rage back in 2005? Well, I want to talk about one of the launch titles for the system. The first two Project Gotham Racing games were flagship titles for the original Xbox. The first, a spiritual successor to Metropolis Street Racer, was a launch title for that system. A great arcade racer with simple driving mechanics and plenty of variety set in giant cities with multiple track layouts, and the second game was simply a lot more of it with better graphics. The franchise was in the right place, and developers Bizarre Creations opted to make their next follow-up well in advance for the next generation. It was first teased on April 2005 when an image of a more detailed red Ferrari was leaked onto the internet, which certainly didn't look like something being made for the original Xbox. And it was until the Xbox 360 was announced on May did Microsoft confirm Project Gotham Racing 3 as a launch title, and that's exactly what it was on November 2005. Like the second game, Bizarre Creations were trying really hard to showcase Xbox Live on their new console, to make online gaming a standard. Project Gotham Racing 3 appears as a more legitimate motorsport, with Gotham TV inspired by other sporting leagues and organizations who have their own channel, where you compare your best friends' times, save replays and photos, and out on the track, instead of playing barriers in a desolate city to compensate for the technical limitations of the original Xbox to excel in other details, tracks in this game have licensed advertising and spectators. They look more like properly organized street circuits. The presentation is like the first couple of Gran Turismo games, if it had a tiny sense of humor. Like, look at the loading screen, the way it describes driving moves, the primitive shapes, the description of slides. Though during gameplay, it's anything but. There's a car reflection that matches the environment, the engine noises are all based on their real-life counterpart according to the developers at least, and a car interior view, while common in video games now. Back then, it was one of the big showcases of the game before it was released, since not that many other races had them. At least not in this level of detail where it's fully rendered and each one is based on individual cars. Playing this game today, it doesn't look too bad graphically. Sure, it only runs in 720p, and even Microsoft's own racing games looked a lot better in the coming years, particularly the Forza series. But if Project Gotham Racing 3 looks like a step up graphically from its predecessor, it did its job showcasing what the Xbox 360 can do. It's one of the earliest games to enter the 7th generation, and is nearly a decade and a half old. That puts into perspective how long ago those systems were released. And it's still set in multiple different cities around the world where layouts change every race. However, being a launch title, I feel as though they played it safe with the cities they chose for this game. The number of them has taken a step back, and all but one of the cities in this game returned from the first PGR: New York, London, and Tokyo, with Las Vegas being the early addition. Personally, I would have preferred different cities from the first two games, or at least ones that have an F1 street circuit, like Monaco, Montreal, or Melbourne. But I suppose we have video games you see right here for that. Bizarre Creations claim there are still millions of potential circuits to create, and 110 sounds like a healthy number compared to other racing games in 2005. But based on my playthrough, it doesn't feel like there is much variety in the pre-made circuits. I don't know, in the first PGR it felt like entire cities were used, and the second game had nearly triple the city count. Lots of different countries to drive on. Mind you, this game would be a handy tool for Herman Tilke if the FIA want an F1 circuit in any of these cities in the future. I mean, given how congested these ones are, it'll never happen, but at least this game is a good way of asking ourselves, what if? And for the returning cities, at least there are a few regions that hadn't been explored in the first game. Like the Brooklyn Bridge in New York, a lot of corners are more unique than others, and the full Nürburgring is also brought back, including the Grand Prix part, making it the only true F1 standard circuit in a Project Gotham Racing game. It appears more frequently towards the end of the career mode, where the finale culminates at the Nürburgring with a 3-lap eliminator on the GP circuit in reverse. Oh, I thought it'd be the full Nordschleife. Well, that's anticlimactic. All the event types scattered all over the career mode include street race, hot lap, current challenges, all the ones from the predecessors. And apart from a couple of new ones including time versus kudos, it's not completely different. However, it's an improvement in the sense that on the track, the challenges are better designed and less time consuming. The overtake challenge, it ends immediately after passing the final car, it didn't do that in PGR2, and the cone challenge, the cones themselves can't be knocked over, and they're larger and bright yellow like a high visibility jacket, although I wish the drift challenges didn't last just 1 or 2 corners. But either way, all you're doing is driving as fast as possible with different obstacles in the way, whether it's opponents or cones. However, kudos isn't as important as cash, only in the event itself where you have to reach a target of kudos like drift or cone challenges, or if you like the prospect of driving a Ford Indigo. Thanks to a ranking system, it unlocks the option to purchase concept cars, but in the long haul you don't even think about it. It's more about how much you earn, because this one vowed to me more user friendly than the predecessors. The second you begin the career mode, you'll be driving over 170 miles right off the bat. According to Ben Ward, in Project Gotham Racing 2, over 70% of players only went through a few events before quitting out of boredom because all the supercars were locked. Personally, I find that strange because I thought it was easier to unlock the supercars compared to the first game, and I like the variety it provided. But I also like to drive multiple supercars as well, and if players are quitting out of a game that has a 90 on Metacritic after minutes from boredom, then in a lot of gamers' eyes, something wasn't right. Thing is, now you have no real reason to buy so many different cars to drive. Like in this playthrough, I only felt inclined to change what I drive for the sake of not showing footage of 2 of the same cars this entire review you're watching right now. It's a setup that depends on the player becoming motivated to buying as many cars as possible. Taking a book out of the Forza series, because for every car you purchase, you have a garage where you can move, insert, and sell cars like your own personal showroom, and walk around freely going to different areas, because the more cars you buy, the further the garage expands beyond the building, which feels like a precursor to the Auto Vista mode in Forza Motorsport 4. And of course, how can I forget Geometry Wars, which not only returns from the predecessor, but next to it is a demo of its sequel, Retro Evolve, which is basically the same game but in HD. Graphics look sharper, more 2.5D, and the camera zooms in closer from the box. And because the rights belong to Activision, this game is also available on the PC as well. What is annoying, however, is the whole game, Project Gotham Racing 3, is restarted and takes you back to the main menu once you're done. Anyway, if you're unsure with what to buy, you can also test drive every single one of them at the Nürburgring to see which one suits your driving style, since each car has their own stats that are genuinely noticeable, especially the drift category. The handling is just a tad more realistic compared to the predecessors. Like, sliding in this game feels like I'm holding on for dear life. Though the more dramatic, gutsier, heroic and legendary you are, the more kudos you earn. However, like the first game, hitting something like a cone or barrier breaks the combo completely. As you can see from the interior view, the steering kind of feels like it's all or nothing on certain cars. Though I never thought I'd say this, but the interior makes it easier to hold. Maybe it's a mental thing, it doesn't look as dramatic. It's been over a year since I've reviewed a Project Gotham Racing game, but then realizing it's an arcade racing franchise, it came back to me seamlessly. You will get the hang of it no matter how tail happy a car is, and it's forgiving to the point that it's almost criminal. And combined with the lack of a damage model, it encourages you to push yourself to the limit right away. And it gives you a chance to think about where you're driving and look at your surroundings. But don't get too carried away, because the game's general brightness is very dark, and there's no way to adjust it in the settings. And it shows when the moon is out, since the tracks aren't exactly lit like the Marina Bay Street Circuit, which makes it almost impossible to anticipate the next corner, even if you're doing your best to look ahead. Also, the HUD sometimes fools you into thinking you're on a straight, but there's a chicane, obvious examples in Las Vegas and Tokyo. The latter has roads painted in a way indicating the hazard zone, but it can also be equally as distracting. A very irritating combination of issues to say the least. I would have thought with the improvement of the challenges with the way they're designed, the tracks wouldn't be held back. Mind you, after just a couple of laps, track memorization will always prosper. I guess you could say that is the most difficult part of the whole game, because Project Gotham Racing 3 is as hard as you choose it to be, as it uses the same difficulty option as the second game. Before an event you can select a medal to earn. The more prestigious it is, the harder the target you need to reach, and apart from kudos, there's no win equaling more credits. You just have to reach the target, as long as it says congratulations you have passed. Plus you'll race against opponents that have the same class type like A, B, C, applying to every single event. Another reason why buying multiple cars later down the line is unnecessary. Like, I wondered if the developers ever considered creating events based on class or manufacturer just like the predecessors, but find a way to use them for these faster cars. And after earning all the medals at any difficulty, it only took around 5 hours without much fanfare. It must be when I reach the final ranking or when I earn all the platinum trophies does that game provide the real ending, or even completely fill the entire garage with everything you can buy. Either way, incredibly casual, perfect for anyone who doesn't have too much time to spend on games, but a challenge is there if you want it. I've recently played a lot of racing games focused on simulation mechanics like Forza Motorsport and Need for Speed Shift, so playing a game with arcade mechanics feels so much easier in comparison. And what makes this game good is that the controls are simple enough that I can get straight into it no matter how long I've been away from it. The game's brightness settings and draw distance at night are literally the worst things you can say about this game. That said, I honestly rate Project Gotham Racing 2 ahead, because there are more cities and the controls are simpler, but knowing that the fourth and final entry in the series doubles the city count, maybe that one could be my favourite. Nonetheless, Project Gotham Racing 3 might be a sequel that improves only a little bit on the gameplay aspects, since the predecessors were so good anyway, and it was moving to another generation of consoles, so Halo, Forza Motorsport and Gears of War on the system didn't exist yet. It's still a terrific racer that you can literally buy with pocket change. Like, I got it from a game store in brand new condition for $5 and easily got what I paid for. A definite must have for the Xbox 360.